Crane kick knockout. If you're looking for a knockout pulled straight off a movie script, then Lyoto Machida's destruction of Randy Couture is for you. Not every knockout we'll feature here sent its victim packing for retirement, but when Machida fought the aging 5-time UFC champion Couture, little did we know that we were about to see an era come to an end. Randy was on the way out of the sport, but Machida clearly still had a lot to give. UFC 129 was the event, and it sure did serve up the goods. Machida gauged the distance for most of the first round, making reads on Randy's lumbering style of movement. Then, in round 2, with all the data collected, he faked Couture with his back leg before leaping into a crane kick, a literal sequence-by-sequence replica of the famous kick from the Karate Kid. But this was no movie, and Lyoto Machida's immortality was officially sealed. Matrix knockout. But while we're talking about KOs that could be from movie scenes, how about that time Anderson Silva entered the Matrix at UFC 101? And we know that phrase entered the Matrix is overused in fight sports, but seriously, Silva was tapping into something truly otherworldly in the first round when he fought Forrest Griffin. The Spider was taking fights at 205 pounds just to give his middleweight contender some room to breathe, and boy, did he have fun in there with the former Ultimate Fighter winner Griffin. Silva was flowing like never before, seeing everything, dodging every shot, and when he started to counter Griffin, it was so easy for him that he barely loaded up on his punches. Seriously, he threw that KO blow with maybe 30 or 40% power, and it was so perfectly timed that it scored him the easy KO. A thing of absolute beauty. Blessed knockout. No single knockout this decade has left jaws on the floor quite like the one scored by Max Holloway over Justin Gaethje. I myself was absolutely blown away by what I was seeing. Not only was Max already dominating this 5-round UFC 300 classic on the scorecards, with no need to risk anything, he decided to invite an all-out slugfest in the final seconds with one of the hardest hitters in the division. Did we mention that Holloway was moving up from featherweight, with questions about his power and his ability to even damage Gaethje's legendary chin? Holloway didn't need to do this. And yet, with the last few seconds counting down in round 5, he threw caution to the wind and ended up scoring the KO of the decade. Putting his chin out there like that provided Justin with the perfect moment to spring the comeback victory, and somehow, someway, it was the seemingly less powerful Holloway who put his lights out. One punch, and Gaethje was face down on the canvas, no follow-up shots needed whatsoever. If you miss this knockout live, what can I say, you really screwed up. Uppercut knockout. Looking for the single hardest punch ever thrown in the UFC octagon? Well, even though there's no exact way to measure, there's a good chance it was this one. Francis Ngannou was a scary rising talent coming into UFC 218, unrefined but immensely powerful. But Alistair Overeem was the type of veteran who could fraud check a fake, that's for sure. He had all the technical advantages, but would his chin be an issue? Well, Ngannou didn't take long to find his mark, not at all, landing an uppercut in round 1 that was thrown straight from hell, almost taking Overeem's head clean off his shoulders in the process. Seriously, it looked like he uppercutted his head into the next dimension. Out of all the ways to book yourself a spot in the elite levels at heavyweight, Ngannou did it best, no question. He turned Overeem into a Pez dispenser. Headshot knockout. We're going to be dealing with some pretty insane comeback wins on this video, but what Leon Edwards did to Kamaru Usman had so much weight behind it. UFC 278's main event seemed like it was going Kamaru Usman's way as he dominated Leon physically, technically, and even emotionally coming into that final round. Edwards' own corner pleaded with him not to let Kamaru bully him, and the colour commentary team of Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier were talking about how Leon seemed to be fighting just to not get finished. But Leon had one almighty Hail Mary up his sleeve, a precise and truly perfect head kick shot that couldn't have landed any better. All of a sudden, Edwards was wheeling away in celebration, and the pound-for-pound king was unconscious on the mat. Boom, headshot, dead. For a guy who spent years holding the nickname Rocky, he finally had his Rocky moment. Spinning kick knockout. All spinning kick KOs will undoubtedly be compared to Edson Barbosa's wheel kick knockout of Terry Etim. Not only was it the first spin kick KO in UFC history, it remains the cleanest one ever thrown. Barbosa was already winning this UFC 142 clash pretty comfortably, but in round 3, he decided to try and put a real stamp on things. And what we got was a display of speed, timing, and athleticism that barely has any equals in the fight game. Terry Etim didn't know what the hell hit him. Edson could have retired on the spot and he'd still be appearing on highlight reels for decades to come. Sure, there are fights with bigger stakes in this video, but in terms of skill, this knockout is on a different level. 5-second knockout. Out of all the ways that Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren's UFC 239 grudge match could have gone, who the hell saw this coming? Sure, they hated each other, but was certain that both men were still coming into this one fully aware of just how good the other guy was in their chosen realm of the fight. Jorge was the striker, for the most part. Ben favoured wrestling and overall grappling. Masvidal knew that Askren didn't want to play with him on the feet, and so he decided to time the most insane flying knee imaginable, nailing the overly eager wrestler with a head start. He was already out cold by the time this super necessary follow-up shot sent him even further into the shadow realm. Oh, and did we mention that at 5 seconds of the first round, it remains the fastest finish in UFC history? Good luck beating that. And what's even more crazy is footage emerged later after the fight of Jorge practicing this exact same move all the way up to leaning on the fence. Jump spinning knockout. When it comes to frankly insane acrobatics, this spinning back kick would look over the top in an 80s martial arts movie. So the fact that Joaquin Buckley pulled off a technique like this in an actual fight is simply bizarre. Blessed with immense physicality and athleticism, Buckley had his kick caught by his opponent Impa Kasanganay in the second round, and unfortunately for Impa, the decision to hold onto his opponent's leg for a split second too long gave Buckley the perfect springboard to leap into this explosive movement. And with power like that, even a partial land can be devastating. But Buckley landed right on the chin. Kasanganay stiffened up and fell back like a pillar of stone, completely out of it. This is the type of knockout blow that can leave a chin completely compromised. The type of KO that changes fighters forever. Buckley could fight another 1,000 times and never get a better highlight reel moment than this one. Elbow knockout. There are comeback victories, and then there's what Yair Rodriguez did to the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jung. Down on the scorecards and facing a veteran with a chin of granite, Yair was seemingly out of options coming into the final seconds of round 5. To make matters worse, the two seemed more interested in high-fiving and giving each other props than scrapping in those final seconds. But Yair had one final trick up his sleeve, and so he backed up, inviting one final charge from the Korean zombie, but instead of meeting him punch for punch, he ducked into a bizarre upward elbow, catching Jung right on his chin and leaving him face down on the canvas. No one had any clue what had happened at first. Was it a clash of heads, or was it another Ali phantom punch? Nope. The true answer was far more impressive. A last-second reverse elbow comeback KO. A triple threat of beautiful violence from El Pantera. 13-second knockout. The UFC had never done anything quite like the world tour they put Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo through prior to their clash at UFC 189. Or at least, that's when the bout was originally scheduled for. But when Aldo pulled out due to an injury, Conor would beat Chad Mendes and force the UFC to book the rematch at UFC 194. By this time, Aldo had been listening to Conor's verbal assault for nearly a full year, and it was wearing on him. For McGregor, it was all part of the game plan. Drag this legend down into the dirt and see if you can make him crack. Aldo hadn't lost in 10 years, but he was emotionally going in, and as soon as he had the chance, he fell right into the trap, launching himself into an ill-advised leaping hook in the very first major exchange of the opening round. The punch actually landed on Conor's face, but unfortunately for Jose, Conor also landed, and his short left hand was right on the sweet spot of Aldo's chin. It's not the flashiest KO on the list, but at 13 seconds into round 1, it remains the quickest title fight knockout in UFC history, and the context makes it all that much better. What do you guys think? Have we left any of your favourite KOs off the list? Well, if you want to see a part 2 to this video, let us know in the comments below, and we might just make it happen.